soon. But Vic, can you talk a little bit about our relationship with Gripcourt and the history there?
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. So about 5 years ago, there was much talk about young ladies, how when young ladies are arrested, and very often for status offenses, in other words, they had a fight with their moms, or they threw something in the house, they would be arrested, and all the services in place help young men, but actually hurt young ladies and made them more angry. So Judge Davidson, Kathy Davidson, and a whole bunch of people got together with NYU in the hopes of creating a girls' court. A court in Westchester County that was under her auspices, and in Manhattan, led with NYU, would develop a court just for young ladies who had been arrested. And the idea for young ladies was to build relationships. Well, you all know relationships are important to every young person, but this was the focus. And literally 3 years were spent reviewing other girls' courts around the country till one was created here in Westchester. And that court operates differently than family court in Westchester in general. There are all the service providers get together for what they call roundtables in a case and meet continually as long as the case is open. Even the county attorney, which is basically a district attorney, but for young people, will come and sit at the table, and everyone is trying to figure out what this young person needs. And the idea is the young person, the young lady, will get all these services and will have no record, and there will be no more recidivism. So, there are many meetings, as Tajay always tells me, if you want to eat, you have to be at the table. So I've been at many tables, and, it's progressing. Is it perfect? Not yet, but they're on their way. And Judge Humphrey now has created a boys' part, which Tajay serves on that committee. And he is wedded to the idea of let's change things up for these young men so that they don't go into that pipeline and they can make better choices. Well, young people make bad decisions all the time. We know about all the brain science. Adults make bad choices. So let's give them an opportunity to make the right choices and not get caught up in that vortex of the criminal justice system. So.
Absolutely. Vicki spoke a little bit about the boys' part. I think one of the things that is going to be unique about the boys' part is that the concept behind it is to ensure that there is a conference that takes place with everyone, all the key stakeholders, young person, family members, guardians, and so on and so forth, to truly understand what the challenges are for that young person, right? Zaid mentioned earlier about food insecurity and that leading young people to make bad choices, whether it's robbing or stealing or whatnot. We need to be clear about that. We need to understand what the needs are of that young person and make sure we identify the support services in place to ensure that young person who doesn't have what it is they need does not have to continue to resort to breaking laws or crime or whatnot to meet those needs. I'm a strong believer that broken people break things, right? And we see that often with young people. So if we help to make them whole again, they don't need to do that. So that has to be our main objective. But the young person, along with all the key stakeholders, will meet identify what the resources are, then those things are going to be put in place for that young person. That case is going to be followed through until the case is out of the court system. Now we're going to have to make tweaks, I know, as we go along, right? Systems are not easy to change. Systems can be very challenging. There's the Machiavellian quote that I love, which says, when you're looking to create change, those invested in the old order things are your enemy, and those who are not are simply your lukewarm allies. So I recognize that it's going to take some time to help the system change, but we have to start somewhere. And we've been pushing now for some time, but building a larger a community of restorative practitioners in Westchester County, and really getting into those systems and helping the system understand how it can be different, how it can engage people in a different way, is what we have to do a lot more of moving forward. Jill, I don't know, I think that's probably enough time. I know you want to create some time for people to ask questions if they have, so thank you all.
Yeah, if you have a question, please put it in the chat. I really want to thank you, Tajay and Vicky. I think it's really essential when we look at our young people, like what do we need as a society? You know, we have this phrase, it takes a village, and it takes a community. And to isolate people because they make a mistake is not being a community. It's not working as a community to address what's happening. So I really appreciate your emphasis of identifying what's needed and helping to link people to that. And above all, the issue of how we dehumanize young people, Black and brown people in our society, and how that dehumanizes white folks when we dehumanize others and the impact it has on us. I think it's really important you're emphasizing the humanity of this, and each one of you have really emphasized that this is about relating to people as people, and how do we connect, look at what options and choices we have in our society, and really turn the corner on this punitive system that is so racially discriminatory. I don't see any questions yet, so I'm going to just take a minute to talk about Restorative Justice Westchester. This webinar is hosted by the Anti-Racist Alliance and Restorative Justice Westchester. And I have to say, the Anti-Racist Alliance, which has been meeting for 25 years, is an inspiration to this network. We started last year during the pandemic. The Restorative Justice Westchester is a countywide multi-sector network of practitioners and advocates and community members seeking to increase support for and access to restorative justice for all of Westchester, but especially for our youth. And our vision is that restorative justice be widely used as an effective and evidence-based alternative to the retributive criminal justice policies and punitive discipline to reduce violence, and to, as Claire so aptly said, empower our communities to collaborate for the dignity and safety of everyone. So we meet monthly to network and advocate. We had a training this summer with 21 amazing people who are implementing restorative justice around Westchester County. We're trying to document what's happening with restorative justice in Westchester. So I ask you, please, if you know of programs, to reach out to me. I'll put my contact information in the chat. We're working with our DA, Mimi Roca, with her office to increase restorative options from the criminal justice system. And we're lifting up restorative justice in our communities, schools, and, as you heard, the criminal justice system. We will be offering community circles on police reform and reinvention to continue those conversations. So if you're interested in that, also reach out to me. Chris H had a question. Could you, I don't see the question. It's hard to follow the chat and moderate. So if you could.
It was about binary youth.
Hmm. Oh, would non-binary youth or GNC youth be seen in the girls' court?
Yes, that's the short answer. Yes. We are always asking people how they answer, how they respond, how they see themselves, how they identify. So yes, we have had 2 cases of non-binary youth.
And Vic,
Um,
I think one of the things we recognize and the court recognizes, while this initiative initially started out to create a gender-specific program for girls, that there are many young men who could benefit from the program as well, right? And so the idea is to expand it and to make sure that we serve all young people, and regardless of how they identify. We need to have support there for every young person.
And before Judge Humphrey started his part, Judge Davidson, we did have young men come in. So.
yeah. There's another question for young folks in high school. Are school staff able to participate in the intervention teams? Is that part of the team that you guys form?
Yes, as part of the boys part, there should be someone from the school that would be identified by the school, whether it's assistant principal, a teacher, but there should be someone from school, from family, social worker, so on and so forth. It has to be a full, rich team of individuals to be able to help create a plan for that young person, including that young person. It's not done without the young person, it's done with the young person.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's important to highlight that in all of these restorative practices, the person who has caused harm and the community and those harmed are all involved in the process. There's another question about, I guess this would maybe be for you, Natalie. What specific programs are being offered at Whitfield, and how have COVID restrictions affected your ability to reach out to those individuals in Whitfield?
Yeah, so I mean, Woodfield it's a school, so it has programs that a regular public school would have: music, like gym, fitness, arts, just all across the board, science. COVID, I mean, Woodfield just recently opened back up from COVID, so it completely affected our ability to reach anybody inside. Pretty much the only way to have any type of contact was through mail. And if they needed court advocacy, you can basically just try to be present through the case manager and so on and so forth. But yeah, same thing with the county jail. The county jail, I believe, just opened back up in May, and Woodfield just opened back up not even more than 2 months.
Yeah, our county jail is for our outside programs are still closed, and so we're doing a lot. We're doing our programs through remote television. Zoom platform is what we're using.
Mhm. I wanted to say thank you to Tajay, but he had to leave for another meeting, just so you know why he disappeared. Vicky, I guess you also have to go.
I have to
Thank you
also.
both. Please give Tajay our deepest thanks and gratitude.
I will, and thank you to all of you for everything you do every day. Have a nice day. Bye, thank you.
I want to take there's a couple more questions. I'm wondering if we could just take 2 or 3 more minutes for them. And one question is about the very difficult issue of a secure facility not being a natural community, and there's a coercive element there. It's also similar, I want to really acknowledge for schools where I do a lot of my restorative justice work. But how do you encourage agency of individuals with the recognition that they're not, it's not totally voluntary? And this, I think, goes for the courts as well. Yeah. Maybe Natalie, you want to start, and then Claire or Zaid, you can chime in.
Sure. How do you all encourage agency of individuals with the recognition that being in a secure facility is not a natural community? So just right off the gate, I would say this is where being a credible messenger is super important. One of my colleagues, Robert Ramasur, who was my co-facilitator inside, he's a big advocate for credible messengers. Just correction officers need to be credible messengers. People working, direct support professionals need to be credible messengers. So it goes back to, the people, the individuals that are facilitating and willing to go into these spaces and understand the space.
Claire, do you want to add anything, or Zaid?
Yeah, and I'll add to that and then pass the floor to Zaid. In addition to that, when we're when we're offering workshop, in my specific work with the fathers, it's with a particular unit, with the young adult population. And so they are a population that is programmed. They do everything together, and there is no opting out formally. However, when they're in workshop with me, I give them the option. If they're not having, they're not feeling it that day, you can opt out. You don't have to participate. And I give them the freedom to voice that, because that's important. One of the other things that we do is, to Natalie's point, is we pull the COs into the conversation. Because again, I think that breaks down that barrier, at least for that, in that space. And hopefully it carries over when they return back to their unit.
Yeah, and I just wanted to piggyback on that as well, because me going into these youth facilities, there have been an overwhelming number of staff that work there that they welcome us with open arms. They're happy because they're looking for somebody. They have all of this bureaucracy, all of this red tape that they're unable to overcome. So we help them to get past that and to empower them and let them know that it's all right. Like, they're an extension of us, that, bring your authentic self. These youth need that. They need that reminder, because it is an unnatural environment. So if you bring your authentic self, you can continue to remind them so that they're not totally indoctrinated into this unhealthy society.
I think we have to wrap up. If you just, I'll give each of you an opportunity to say one or two more sentences, and then we'll close. You want to start, Claire?
So, I think a lot's been said today. I appreciate everyone being here. I appreciate learning from the other presenters. Natalie, we collaborate with Braveheart, so we also know Robert and Jessica really well. They are part of our CCMI team. And I think that's what's important in rebuilding this village. It's pulling everybody together, everybody giving space for everyone to share, and give voice to their experiences and their vision for how we can move forward. And I also think it's important that we think of and we take into consideration, as we're considering how we move forward, the historical impact of slavery and segregation and all these, and as well as what we've done to other marginalized communities as they've come over, whether it's been the Asian community or Irish or Italians. All of that plays a part in um, how people see themselves now, especially our communities living on the fringe, how they see themselves now and how they navigate the world. And so the decisions that we're making as policymakers, as as social workers, all of that, if we can take into consideration the history, because we're not living in a vacuum, right? All of this has had an impact and influence how we interact with each other. And I would encourage all of us to continue to not be afraid to raise these conversations and have these forums and have open and honest dialogue, because that's how we can move forward in an honest way and have meaningful impact. So thank you all for being here today, and thank you for having me.
Said?
Yeah, thank you as well for having me. What I would want to leave people with is to always remember that we're all going through things, and youth in particular are often going through things, but many of them lack the ability to process, their feelings and what they're going through. And we should never underestimate how much impact a smile or an ear or a shoulder actually would have on these young people. And you may just save a life. You may save their life. You may save them from throwing a brick, from going out and committing a crime. A smile, a hug, just being available for them goes a long way. So let's not lose sight of that. I'll leave with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Natalie, you want to say some last words?
Sure. Yeah, I wanted to just, thank everybody for being here, and thank you for your patience earlier. I also wanted to say, like Claire said, nothing exists in a vacuum. So, if you feel called to continue learning more about this work and doing more about this work, by all means, please create an action plan for yourself to, maybe reach out to Family Services of Westchester, reach out to Claire, reach out to Saeed and Tajay and myself and Jill, and actually, take it a step further. And one of the things that Jessica from Bravehearts always says is, like, so many of the solutions sometimes are free. So if time is not something that you feel that you can donate, there's all these organizations are always accepting cash, funds, or time, or resources, or some other way. But there's always different ways besides, if you don't have the finances or the time, there are very creative ways to get involved. And so I just encourage everybody, to try to find, your way to get involved, past, just, finding out and then taking that information with you. What can you do within the next week that'll bring you, closer or more aligned to what you learned today. And, I'll end that off with myself. Feel free to check out my website, ceremonycerebellum.com, and check out any of my work. And if anybody has any questions or something comes up later on in the week, because a lot of the downloads also happen when you're like just moving, through your daily life, please feel free to reach out again to any of the panelists that were here, myself included. And yeah, thank you.
Okay, I want to again thank everybody for your time, for joining us today. I hope that our goal was to raise awareness of restorative justice work happening here in Westchester. I hope that we succeeded. And for those who are interested in restorative justice, please reach out to me. We're very young. We don't have our website yet. I invite Claire and Natalie to put your websites in the chat. But we can link you up with any of the speakers or other restorative justice resources in the county. And if you're moved to do advocacy with us and within your networks for more restorative justice rather than punitive responses to harm in our county, please join us, do work within your networks. It's up to us to raise the awareness and address the racism and these means for equity in our criminal legal system and in our county. So I thank you all very, very much for your time.
Thank you, Jill, and everyone. Very important conversation.
Thank you, everybody.